Right now, an entirely new digital architecture is expanding across the globe, consuming vast amounts of capital, energy, and infrastructure. At the center of this expansion sits one company, NVIDIA. As of 2026, it commands a market valuation of over $3.4 trillion and controls more than 90% of the global supply of artificial intelligence training hardware. The rapid speed of this ascent led many to assume it was a matter of timing, that NVIDIA simply happened to have the right chip in stock when the generative AI boom hit in late 2022. This dominance is the realization of a deliberate 20-year contrarian strategy, a multi-billion-dollar bet that quietly trapped the entire global technology sector. In 1993, NVIDIA was a graphics startup operating out of a Denny's restaurant in San Jose. Their first commercial product, the NV1, relied on a non-standard rendering architecture that was incompatible with industry standards. It failed, nearly bankrupting the company. They survived only because the Japanese video game giant Sega provided a strategic $5 million lifeline. This capital allowed NVIDIA to pivot to polygon-based graphics with the Riva 128, stabilizing their finances. Competing in the hyper-fragmented graphics market of the 1990s forced the company to adopt an aggressive development cadence, shipping new architectural upgrades every 6 months. This history of existential survival and rapid engineering cycles created the operational foundation for the massive hardware gambles they would soon undertake. NVIDIA's position relies on a fundamental architectural divergence in the physical mathematics of computer processing, the difference between serial and parallel execution. A CPU acts like a single, hyper-fast express toll lane, processing one operation at maximum speed. A GPU acts like a 1,000-lane toll plaza. Each lane is slower, but moves an enormous volume of data simultaneously. This parallel architecture is the requirement for matrix multiplication, the repetitive mathematical operation used to train deep learning neural networks. Because rendering 3D video games and training artificial brains both require processing millions of independent data points at once, graphics cards were the most effective engines for AI training from the start. In 2006, CEO Jensen Huang realized GPUs could be used for general-purpose scientific computing if developers had the right software interface to access the silicon. He mandated the development of CUDA, a proprietary software layer built into every NVIDIA chip. It took up physical space and increased manufacturing costs per die, despite having no immediate consumer market. Wall Street viewed CUDA as an expensive vanity project. For 7 years, investors penalized the company's stock as the software development costs depressed profit margins. Huang used the high profit margins from teenage PC gamers buying GeForce cards to quietly fund the research. He insulated his engineering teams, allowing the CUDA ecosystem to mature in isolation. By sacrificing short-term profitability, NVIDIA established a field-tested software environment nearly a decade before the broader tech industry realized it required parallel computing infrastructure. The proof arrived in 2012 at the ImageNet computer vision competition. A neural network called AlexNet, trained on 2 consumer-grade NVIDIA graphics cards, shattered previous accuracy records and proved that deep learning scaled exponentially on GPUs. Huang responded with a total corporate pivot, redirecting every upcoming chip architecture to prioritize deep learning features. NVIDIA was no longer a component vendor, but an AI infrastructure provider. Modern AI deployment requires clustering tens of thousands of GPUs together to operate as a single machine. These clusters are bound by NVIDIA's proprietary NVLink networking technology, which manages data synchronization across the entire warehouse. This hardware is reinforced by a software layer that has been optimized for 20 years. Every major open-source AI framework relies on CUDA, making it difficult for developers to switch to cheaper rival hardware without losing significant performance. NVIDIA's true moat is this integrated web, a system where the networking, the software libraries, and the silicon are inseparable. In November 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT, marking a functional shift from retrieval computing, where servers look up pre-recorded files, to generative computing. Generating unique data tokens in real time requires constant parallel processing. This live mathematical intensity rendered traditional data centers filled with CPU servers structurally obsolete for running large language models. Fortune 500 companies and hyperscale cloud providers halted their routine server purchases to buy NVIDIA's entire available supply. This capital reallocation panic gave NVIDIA pricing power over the world's largest technology enterprises. Because they were the only provider with a turnkey infrastructure ready for generative AI, their gross margins expanded to 75%, a level typically reserved for pure-play software companies. Despite this dominance, NVIDIA is exposed to a single point of failure. They are a fabless designer, meaning every high-performance chip they sell is manufactured exclusively by TSMC in Taiwan. TSMC also controls CoWoS, a proprietary packaging technology required to achieve the data speeds needed for AI. Any geopolitical disruption in the Taiwan Strait would instantly freeze the global AI hardware supply chain. There is the threat of customer concentration. A small group of buyers, including Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, account for nearly half of NVIDIA's data center revenue. All of them are currently deploying their own custom in-house AI chips to reduce their dependence on NVIDIA. To escape the hardware premiums they currently pay, the very hyperscalers fueling NVIDIA's growth are structurally positioned to become its most direct competitors. NVIDIA has evolved from a graphics startup into the architect of the global computing infrastructure, building the foundation that the generative age operates on. The industry is now transitioning away from training massive foundational models in centralized data centers toward running live inference on billions of local edge devices and autonomous systems. While NVIDIA successfully built the infrastructure for this transition, its long-term stability depends on defending that ecosystem against the very tech giants it empowered.